This program brought to you by Brewski's Bar and Grill, located in Utica, Minnesota. Your one-stop shop for delicious burgers, fries, pizzas, and more.
Of his mind.
Well, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. You ready?
Yes.
Here we go. Show number 10 for the Sports Wrap with George and Ringer. And we were just chatting. If Darcy doesn't cut it out, we were just talking about the Gopher game that I had the privilege of being at on Saturday. And we were talking about how well they played and really how well they played in the first half.
Yes.
It was an offensive display that was I don't know if you're going to find a half of football that's going to be much better than that anywhere along the way. They just didn't make many mistakes.
You know, on top of that, when you have receivers of that caliber, and you have a quarter, I mean, what is a perfect day against a top-ranked team? 18 for 20 for 3 touchdowns, and you know, and a whole bunch. I mean, he had a perfect day, and his receivers were wide and very difficult to cover. That was Penn State's difficulty, and it was always hanging there for most of the game. But
and because I was there, I could sometimes see things happening. They were Penn State was that they were going to take the run away from the Gophers,
yes,
and make them throw the ball. And if the Gophers were going to win, they were going to have to do it with Tanner Morgan's arm. And he answered the bell.
He did.
He answered the bell, and he had some open receivers, but he tucked some balls in some places. I know they don't want to get him hurt, but they got to let them run the ball once a game to keep the other team's defensive ends honest.
Well,
because they weren't even thinking about him. You know what I mean?
And he's a pretty good runner.
He's a pretty good runner.
He's as big as a boat. I mean, he's a good-sized kid,
yeah,
and he can punish it. Right now, Tanner Morgan is playing as good of a Gopher quarterback as I have seen. I mean, he's had 2 or 3 games that were legitimately perfect.
I try to think back with some of the teams that threw the ball 50, 60 times a game. Some of the people might say those quarterbacks had better days. But I mean, when you're talking about 18 out of 20 against Purdue, a month and a half ago, he went 21 for 23 or something. I mean, it's an incredible number to complete that number of passes, and they just aren't little flare route passes. They're down the field. It's some interesting things.
I have down here that Penn State had a total 518 yards for the game. That's an awful lot of yards.
That's an awful lot of yards, and that concerns Tim. That concerns me a lot, because I understand Penn State's a good team and all that other stuff. They were ranked number 4 for a reason. But giving up 518 yards is a huge number.
On the other hand, the Gophers picked up 460 against one of the top defenses in the country, and that's not too bad either.
That's not too shabby.
And and like I said, when Penn State was going down, and this is going to be it, and then they got tossed back a little bit, and they were out of range, and and they threw the pass, and those linebackers really played well. Played the defense, and so did the corners, and they came up and covered those receivers. And I just thought, we keep on thinking about all these superstars back there, but Winfield,
and he's a safety, and he's out there to play center field. But Penn State had a tight end, number 87, and if you watch the game, I think he ended up catching like 10 or 11 balls.
Yes.
And it seemed to me that our Antoine Winfield was lined up over the top of him in a lot of situations and giving him lots of ground. Now, whether that ground needed to be given or not be given, I'm not sure.
No, Penn State dominated pretty much every category, the statistics of every category, except they didn't match Morgan, and they fell a little short on the score. Other than that, they dominated everything.
And turnovers, that's what cost them. I mean, they had 3 turnovers to the Gophers 1, and that Shannon Brooks one was a big one. Shannon Brooks fumbled early in the third quarter, midway through the third quarter. He did not step on the field the rest of the game.
He did not.
Did not get another play in that game. The Gophers could have put Penn State away on that drive. That would have got them to 38. That would have put Penn State like in a different mode. Not that they weren't already trying to scramble through, but it would have been interesting. And I think Shannon Brooks got told, look, we can run and we can do all other kinds of things, but ball security is number one. We can't turn the ball over. He had a heck of a block on the long touchdown pass early in the game. He came from this side of the formation all the way over to the other side and picked up a blitzing corner or safety and picked them up, and that was the difference in the play. But you can't fumble the ball.
You can't fumble the ball, not in those drives, not against championship teams. It just it can't happen.
Okay, so did the Gophers get too much love this week in the college football playoff rankings?
They got none. I tell you, respect. People just are not. What are they? 7th now?
8th, I think.
8th. Okay, so how many teams have lost one, maybe even 2 games in that mix? And it's just.
I think they got too much love, and I'll tell you why. Nobody's ever moved up 9 spots in the college playoff rankings. Never. Now, does that mean that the college football guys and gals who do the rankings said, geez, we did underrank them. We should have had them up maybe 13, 14 last week. But
they had them
we
38th at the beginning of the year.
So, I don't know. It's almost like the Gophers are being set up for a fall. And like, okay, we'll give you your love, but you got to go to Iowa where you haven't won in the last 20 years. Go ahead and try to win at Kinnick Stadium, and if you can do that, then we'll believe you, kind of thing.
And I guess that's probably the way they're seeing it. Plus, when you take a look at the SEC, they have half the Big Ten. The top 10 in their thing. I mean, they're all in there, and they're all beating the heck out of each other, and they're all really good football teams, And so, I just took a look at, what was Baylor even ranked ahead of them? Baylor's also.
Baylor had a win in triple overtime. They didn't move a spot, so they're 9-0. They were 13th last week. They stayed at 13, and they're still 9-0.
Yeah, and they're not happy about that either.
I would guess they're not very happy whatsoever about that. So
I opened the Sunday paper, and there it is inside, all the pictures and the glory of the football game, and it's fantastic. It was like in the old days we used to get the sports peach. You remember the Minneapolis paper? The thing came out pink, and that was the sports. And this was almost worthy of that. And when you took a look at this, I thought, old timers like me have been waiting a long time for this, and so we take our celebration. On the other hand, by Wednesday that celebration's over. By Friday you got to be ready to go.
They talked to PJ Fleck last night when they came out with the rankings, and they said, "How do you not go into Iowa with with your heads basically stuck up your backsides?" And he said, "Look, we go in, we celebrate the game afterwards in the locker room. We have all kinds of fun. We high-five each other. We tell each other blah, blah, blah." He says, "Then we come on Sunday and we talk about it, and we give everybody high fives. We tell them what they did good, and then it's over. And then you're going to have to put on your big boy clothes," kind of what he said. And he says, "You're going to have to put on your leather jacket because here comes the criticism. Here comes the critique of what you did wrong and what we got to do to get better."
the second half in the terms of the Penn State game.
Yeah. And so there's things that have to be worked on, and I think that's the right attitude. Now, whether you can get your 18 to 23-year-old men to buy into all that will be the true test for PJ Fleck and his crew. Going to Iowa is a tough place to play with the pink locker room and the unfriendly fans that are right on top of you. It's one of the closest sidelines. There's people right there. It's very uncomfortable, and they've got their hands full.
Well, and it doesn't really get any easier from that because, I don't know what they'll do with Northwestern, but Wisconsin pops right in there, and even at the tail end of this, you're going to wind up playing Ohio State in all probability.
So, they got 4 tough games left.
4 tough games
left. So, I assume that you got to watch LSU and Alabama.
What a football game, Tim! What a football game! You see this Joe Burrow, and you don't get a chance to see Burrow, and you see the coach, he's fantastic. And but LSU, they've been waiting for this, and I have a fan here a fan of LSU's that comes in the summertime, and he's talking about this year it's going to be. This year, I mean, LSU believes that, and they went in and they, I can't say they took care of business, but they
just scored 33 points in the first half at Alabama.
Alabama
let a lot of people know that LSU is for real. Now, the fact that they only scored 13 in the second half and quote unquote had to hang on, I'm not. You knew Alabama was going to give them a run.
Well,
you knew they weren't going to lay down and die.
You're sitting down, you have two great quarterbacks, and of course one starts coming up limping a little bit, and he's heavily wrapped, and it makes me question whether or not he should have been on the field. Because Alabama, I mean, they still got a good chunk of season left. And, but I also didn't know this. They talked about Minnesota's weak schedule. The number one team in the country with the weakest schedule, Alabama. And everybody's putting, all the people around here, remember 2 months ago were saying, oh, could the Gophers have a weaker schedule, blah, blah, blah. And of course, we talked about South Dakota State and 1AA and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying that their non-conference is great, but it's adequate. It's what you do in this day and age. Well, and also, Michigan, when they have a home non-Big Ten game, they got 100,000, 110,000 people to put in this stadium. It does become a matter of finances.
Absolutely.
And the same way in Notre Dame, which, by the way, better be watching their Twinkies because Navy's coming to town, and they are red hot. And so the gold helmets at Notre Dame Stadium are going to be flapping all over the place, but I'm going to keep an eye on that game.
1:30 on Saturday for that one. That's a biggie. 23 Navy at 16 Notre Dame. No doubt about that one. Number 4 Georgia at number 12 Auburn.
Oh, I tell you what.
Everybody's talking. All Georgia has to do is run the table, and they're in the Final Four.
All they have to do is run the table.
All they got to do, that means they got to beat Auburn this weekend, and they got to beat LSU in the SEC championship game. That's easier said than done.
Oh,
big time.
The SEC is an amazing conference. And also we have Michigan State and Michigan are playing in the Big Ten, and Wisconsin and Nebraska. My good friends at the Army are playing VMI. Air Force is playing Colorado State, and Wisconsin playing Nebraska. The game that I'm going to be keeping an eye on, Clemson and Wake Forest, is going to be a very good game. UGA and Auburn is going to be a really good game.
But at 3 o'clock on Saturday, the world kind of comes to a standstill, right? With Iowa and the Gophers.
It will in the Solarium.
It's going to kind of come down to that. Oklahoma, who's battling for their playoff lives, they got number 13 Baylor, so there's going to be a lot of
one. The Bears are looking these days.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting, and of course NDSU trying to remain perfect. They get South Dakota, not South Dakota State. They get South Dakota this week, and so that'll be a big one for them as well.
It is. This is hot time for football. Last week in the smaller colleges, Johnny Larson came back at UMD.
Johnny Larson came back, and with the Gophers or with the Bulldogs, really nothing to play for. He came back and they beat a less than good Mary team.
Well, I'm going to tell you this, and this is something I've never seen on a UMD team. They had 8 touchdown passes, not 1 touchdown rushing. There's a statistic you don't see too often at UMD. It's and NDSU kind of picked up Western Illinois, and then Illinois State snuck by SDSU 27-18.
Yeah, South Dakota State probably cost themselves a national semifinal home game that day with that loss.
Yeah.
They're going to regret that one. They're going to end up having to go on the road someplace for that game, and the Jackrabbits will be thinking about that one for a while.
Well, and the Mavericks from Mankato, 42-39 over Sioux Falls. Must have been a dandy.
Must have been a dandy.
I saw Sioux Falls earlier against UMD. This is a very good football team.
Yeah, Mankato sitting 3 in the nation. They needed a game that was a test before going into the playoffs.
I agree.
I don't want to. I'm not jumping on the bandwagon, but I hope that Mankato gives it a run towards the national championship game at least. The NSIC hasn't fared very well over the last couple of years,
and I think they got knocked out first round last year too, didn't they?
Yes. Matter of fact, I think in their bracket, two plays 7, 3 plays 6, 4 plays 5. I think 5, 6, and 7 won all those games, and 2 of those teams were NSIC teams. So,
I'm going to tell you this right now: all the football's not played at Division I.
Yeah.
Some of these smaller schools play some excellent football, and there's some excellent football players. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
Absolutely. Anything else college football-wise you want to discuss?
Let's see here. I'll tell you what I did last night is I sat down and watched a little Gopher basketball.
Oh.
And so I was sitting there watching it. Evansville knocks off Kentucky. Well, I'm not saying I cheered, but boy, I chuckled a little bit.
I laughed right out loud.
And that's what I did too.
I laughed right out loud.
And
I don't know if you saw the handshake between the head coach from Evansville and our good friend, what's his name again? Jerkwagon, USA, Mr. Whatever. Did you see the handshake?
Yeah, it looked cool. It was just...
He turned away from him. He wouldn't even look him in the eye. He looked away. He wouldn't even look him in the eye. Calipari, I finally remembered the name.
Yeah.
You punk.
No.
You I can't even...
Here's this young guy come in with this team. Just got the win of his career with a team that's just got a win that they're never going to forget the rest of their lives, and he dumped on him.
Yeah. I didn't have much respect for Calipari, but after that episode last night, that will delete him from my whatever. I don't like the way he's done things. I never have, and I'll tell you. You remember him and who was the head coach at Temple? Oh, come on! And you remember them? Their fight?
Yeah.
And it was that's Calipari, and he just does things the wrong way, and he rubs me the wrong way, and so anytime Kentucky loses, that is a good day. And last night was good on that part, but. You know, I was listening to the announcers during this Gopher basketball game last night, and at the end when the Gophers had lost, the guy was like, "Whoa, geez, the Gophers played really good, and they did this and this and this," and I'm like, they took horrible shots.
Yeah.
Horrible shot selection last night, and they passed like high schoolers, trying to thread the needle between 2 or 3 opposing people on a bounce pass that Magic Johnson couldn't have thrown it in there.
There was a period of time last year when they couldn't buy a 3. And then they broke out of that a little bit, got themselves into the tournament, and now all of a sudden they're back there. And for Aturu to be hitting the 3s, he's just 6'10", but I'm telling you about Daniel Aturu. Cretan High School, right? Good Minnesota boy. He's going to be a great one. He's averaging 18 points and 9 rebounds, and he's a sophomore.
And the big thing is, I think the referees take things out on them. They're too hard on the charge call that they gave him there. You know the call I'm talking about,
where he lifted his arm up.
Where the guy flopped whatever.
Yeah.
And the guy from Butler actually pushed him in the back first. I'm like, come on, you as a referee, you're standing right there. You can't honestly believe that. And then they went to the screen to see if it was going to be a flagrant. And I'm like, oh my gosh,
that was incredible.
That would have been a total injustice in the game. But overall, the Gophers, minus Atura, did not look like a very good team last night.
No, they played. The defense was really, really lacking. But they've got some skills here, and I'm looking at Peyton Wills. He's averaging 15 points, and Marcus Carr, who I think from Toronto. Do you know he's from Toronto?
I didn't know he was from Toronto.
Okay. And and we also Alahan Durham. He's from Turkey, and and he looks like he's.
Well, I was reading in the Minneapolis paper today. We've got a guy from Germany who's going to be returning after he hurt his wrist. So we apparently we've gone international, and the Gophers looked very good against Oklahoma last Saturday night in the first half, and then in the second half things absolutely collapsed. And I won't say that I'm concerned about this team, but I'm hopeful that they're going to turn turn the tide, and all the hype is going to come in the right direction.
I just wanted to say this because I had to look it up. The Evansville nickname are the Purple Aces, and I kept on trying to think, Evansville, what were they? Eagles or Purple Aces? I never would have picked that one up.
That is a very, very good name. I agree.
Okay. Anyway, that has about what I have to cover with college.
Okay.
I still have a couple of notes that I can go through.
Well, let's talk about the Broncos for a moment,
Sure.
if we might. And before I forget, and I'm going to forget if I don't do it now, I got to say hi to my cousin Vicky. She was very praiseworthy of our show last week that she watched on YouTube. So thanks, Vicky. Hi to you, and keep watching. We'll keep doing what we do here.
Is that lady I met here a couple weeks ago?
No, my cousin Vicky lives in the Twin Cities area.
Oh, right.
So she watches this.
Streamed around the world.
There you go. Bronco girls hockey gets started this weekend. They head to Wadena Deer Creek on Friday night, and then stay overnight and head down to Princeton for a game on Saturday. So that gets the winter sports season officially started with games.
So they have a couple of girls from Rainy River on this team?
Three girls from Rainy River on the team. So I'll be interested to see how all that mixes together. Are they forwards? Are they defense? Where are they going to be? Because this team lost a lot of girls off last year's team. They didn't have a lot of veteran players left over. So, and of course, some of the veteran players like Macy Marcotte, Emma Erickson, some of these girls just got done swimming on Saturday, and now we're going to have to play hockey on Friday and Saturday nights. So they'll have their hands full. But I'm interested to see what these Canadians, and that's what they are, Canadian girls, bring to the team, and it's going to be very interesting to see how it all comes together.
I find it interesting, Bronco hockey these days, it's covered by the McDonald family. You know, Michelle with the ladies and Jorge with the guys, and it's just like, you know, they just kind of have a little bit of a cornered market right now. It's great.
Yeah, and they talk back and forth and share drills and all that other stuff, so it's always good stuff. Boys hockey and girls basketball got practices started this week. The girls basketball team has a scrimmage in Virginia on Saturday, and then a scrimmage at Rainy River on Tuesday. So if you want to go out and watch those, the boys hockey team has a scrimmage in their IRC Jamboree next Tuesday down in Virginia. In the Jamboree, they play North Shore, and you'd be like, well, that's not in the IRC. North Shore is now the newest team into the hockey IRC for this year.
Didn't know that.
So when the Storm and the Broncos play now, it's an IRC matchup. So not only is it a Section 7 matchup, but now it's a IRC matchup. So keep that in mind as you go through the season. Boys basketball practice starts on Monday, and wrestling.
You always know when you can find a nice, comfortable sport to.
And wrestling also gets started on Monday, and
Actually, Big Ten night, next Saturday night or Friday night even. There's Ohio State and West Virginia. Ohio State perennial favorites, but wrestling's back on TV in the Big Ten.
Ohio State and Penn State, I'm sure the top two to win the national championship, which we will be at, George.
Yeah.
I was riding on the train on Saturday back from campus to Target Field, where I got on the train, and I was standing next to some very disgruntled Penn State fans, and we were coming in past US Bank Stadium, and I asked him, have you ever been here? And he says, no, I haven't. I said, well, you know, the wrestling championships are going to be right here. And he's like, here? I said, yeah, at the football stadium. And his eyes kind of lit up, and I'm like, he was from Arizona, so I wonder if he won't make a trip up to watch the Penn State, because
it's a remarkable venue. It's an incredible venue.
High school football semifinals get started tomorrow at US Bank Stadium, speaking of that, and on Friday and on Saturday, and of course all the Section 7 teams minus, Coon Rapids, I guess, is in Section 7 for 5A, but MIB was the only team to make it through from northeastern Minnesota, and I know there were some unhappy people on Facebook regarding the North Central Stars and them not making the state tournament, and MIB and Southridge playing in the state tournament against each other. who North Central had clobbered both teams. That's the way things go. Unfortunately, that's the way sections get lined up and how things go. So I'm interested to see how MIB fares. I think they play tomorrow morning or Friday morning.
Friday morning.
And we'll see how things fare for them.
9 a.m.
9 a.m. And then the other thing that I'm looking forward to is Caledonia. 66-game winning streak on the line.
Isn't that something?
Think about that, 66. That's 4 state championships in a row. Looking for their 5th to tie Stephen Argyle, winning their 5th in a row. So I'm going to be interested to see how Caledonia does. I'm interested to see how Coon Rapids does. Coon Rapids, 5A school, had lost 27 games in a row up until a couple of years ago, and they got a new coach in, a young buck, 29 years old, and he's apparently got these kids believing in what they're doing, and so I'm very curious to see.
Seeing a change here. Eden Prairie's not there. Owatonna's not there, 2-time state champion. There might just be, a
changing of the guard.
And like you say, these 29-year-old guys that know things, they have some pretty good offenses. So
and I think they get kids believing.
Yes.
And that's such a big thing. And the other thing, of course, is Elk River, who has been there the past few years. They got lucky. I don't know if you heard about this, but they played Moorhead last week. Elk River wins 58-55 on the last play of the game. Moorhead scored with 13 seconds left in the game. 13 seconds left in the game to go ahead. To go ahead.
And they came back and scored.
Elk River had not thrown a pass in the game, and they were 57 yards away. And they sent one of their running backs down the field, fired it up to him. He catches it at the 30-yard line, makes one guy miss, and he goes in for the winning score to win 58-55. So maybe Elk River, maybe a team of destiny when you went on a play like that.
Championship football brings on some strange sights. No two ways about it.
Absolutely. Anything else you got circled there that's got you of interest?
Well, of course, I'm going to keep an eye. Chaska's 10-1. They're going to go against Coon Rapids, who's 8-3. And but that doesn't really mean anything at this point in time.
No, it doesn't.
I have a friend in Chaska that I will call him before the game and see if and ask him to get us some kind of synopsis. But those are awfully good football teams down there, and you just don't know how it's going to turn out. You've been following that Prep Bowl for a long time.
Yeah. This will be Prep Bowl, I believe, 38, and this will be my 37th Prep Bowl that I've attended. So, yes, college hockey, got to give a shout-out to the Bulldogs.
Oh, boy.
Nice win and a tie and a loss in the shootout to Denver last week. Denver was ranked the #1 team in the nation what I watched on Saturday night. Denver's a very good team. UMD's getting better. They've started to put the pieces in place, and it'll be.
What was the score of the Friday night game?
Friday night was a 3-3 tie, and then the shootout, and then the Bulldogs won 5-2 on Saturday night. And kind of took the game over despite some early penalties, a 5-minute boarding penalty that cost them one of their forwards during the game. They overcame that and did a nice job. And of course, Hunter Shepard, the goaltender, continues to play out of his mind. So Bulldogs looking good. So we'll keep that going. The Wild last night. They're tied for 30th place in the National Hockey League, the Wild are.
How many teams are there?
31 teams.
Oh, that's good.
And they got to play the 31st place team last night. Well, I should say they're tied for 28th because there's 3 teams tied with 13 points. And they lost to the LA Kings last night, who have only had 11 points on the season. So finally they get to come home. They're going to get a stretch of games here at home now. And so that'll be good. Hopefully the Wild can continue to lose games and get the #1 pick. Thank you very much. There's my plug again for the Wild. The Timberwolves. Do you realize they played Denver on Sunday night, I think it was, prior to the Vikings game? They went 6 for 45 from the 3-point line. 6 for 45. That's 2 out of every 9. That's 22%. Okay, I hate to do the math on that. And the scarier part about it, folks, is they only lost 100-98, and they had a chance to win it at the end. I don't know how you can shoot 6 for 45 and have a chance.
You can't even do that in ninth grade. You have to have, it's tough to do in that league. Difficult to win. It's amazing that they kept it that close.
Yeah, and so last night they played, or 2 nights ago they played Detroit. Last night, Detroit looked pretty nice, shooting a lot of threes. And I understand it's probably the game, and it's just the way we're going to have to get used to it. But right now, if the playoffs started today, the Timberwolves would be in the playoffs.
Well, let's start it right early then.
Let's get it underway. So we got to talk about the Vikings and the Cowboys. I think that's kind of how to wrap it up here.
This was the Vikings. If I didn't have a dog in the fight, what an exciting game it would have been.
Yeah,
it was really, really a good game. And there's some people out there that, I mean, you take a look. Cousins was 23 for 32 for 220, 2 touchdowns, sacked once, no interceptions. Sacked once, and after 32. Now you can tell me that the offensive line seems to be taking care of business.
The offensive line has gotten better.
And we knew that the Cowboys' offensive line was going to be pretty good, and they were 24 for 46 for almost 400 yards. But
they didn't have a choice. They could not run the football against the Vikings.
And Elliott was...
And our good friend, Zeke Elliott, and I put friend in major quotes because he's a... I want to apologize. Delvin Cook was saying what a great guy he is, whatever. No, he's not a great guy. He does things the wrong way, Delvin, and I hope that you're not taking lessons from how Zeke does things, because that will make me very upset. But speaking of Delvin Cook, if he's not the best running back in the NFL,
he's awfully close.
He's awfully close. Man, was he's smooth again.
When I took a look here, and all of a sudden, Adam Thielen's not in the lineup, so you need a receiver. So what do? Well, you go back to Kyle Rudolph, and you take a look, and it's just, not only does this man have good size, great blocking ability, he caught 4 passes, 2 for touchdowns,
and a 2-point conversion,
an incredible 2-point conversion. And it's just, you took a look at that and you just think, hey, he went to Notre Dame. He's got to be an All-American boy. Yeah. But he really had a great game.
Had a great game, absolutely. Yeah. And the deflection by Kendricks on the last play, when Zeke went out, Elliott went out into the flats.
You wanted to see that done over again to see if it was for real.
Yeah, it was a good game by the Vikings, and for them to answer a lot of questions, a lot of the naysayers out there, and you know who you are, you son of a guns. You say Cousins can't win on a night game, can't win in prime time, can't win on the road, can't win a big game against a winning team. The Vikings went out and answered all those questions, and I think they did. I'm not saying Dallas is a great team, but Dallas is a good team. And the fact that the Vikings let one slip away with the Chiefs the week before, and I didn't get to watch that game, but the fact that they let that one slip away against the Chiefs, who have now lost 4 of 6, who look pedestrian, can I say that? I mean, losing to the Titans, there's something up with that team. So the fact that the Vikings lost to them, it makes that worse, even hurt a little bit more, especially when the Packers are sitting at 8-2 and everything else. And of course, everybody's already given them the win against Denver. Denver's horrible. They're going to win at home. The Vikings cannot go into the bye and lay an egg, because that'll sit in their brains for 2 weeks.
Well, I'm going to tell you, in this league, and you could, like you say, you can ask Tennessee, because you can't beat New Orleans, 1-7, 7-1, and and they've got the best of everything, and they took that game right away from the Saints. And I mean, those guys, the Saints, were sitting on the bench with their heads hung, Tim, in the 4th quarter, and it's just that was amazing.
And that's a division game, and I think that's what New Orleans forgot. Any given Sunday, the whole cliche thing. But that's a division game. That's a team you see twice a year. Those are big games, and the Saints let one fall away there.
And I tell you, I caught bits and pieces. One of my new favorite football players is Lamar Jackson.
You mentioned him last week. You did.
He did. He had a 47-yard run, stopped in the middle of the field amongst 2 defenders, spun around. I don't know, still know how he did that. and went in for the touchdown.
I'm just envisioning it, George.
Yeah,
I'm watching it in my head again.
It was so smooth, and those poor guys were stood there like they were standing still. Nothing they could do about it, you know. The Ravens are going to come on real strong. They beat the Bengals 49-13.
And I know that I'm going to say this way, and everybody's going to say, but they already did it. They still got to beat the Patriots in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Okay, you did it during the regular season. Yeah. I get it. You did it in prime time. You got to do it in the playoffs, and that's going to be. That's my predicted AFC Championship game. Baltimore at New England. It's going to be fun.
Well, Jackson's my find for the year.
Yes.
I've got just a couple of other sports notes.
Couple of notes. What do you got?
Colin Kaepernick is getting a tryout down in Atlanta on Saturday for a number of teams.
Okay.
An old friend of ours, he graduated last year, Gary Koenig, his Central Lake College teams won the state tournament, and he was the long snapper on the team. And I tell you, and you and I know really basically how important a long snapper is. And he fit the bill real well. Yeah,
and congratulations to Central Lakes. I know they had to forfeit some games early in the season. They ended up with a record of 6-5, but they definitely came on at the end, and whatever the coaches found worked, and so congratulations to them. I had a chance to win a state championship when I played for Mesabi way back in the day, and you might think, well, it's community college football. We beat Normandale at St. Thomas College, at University of St. Thomas, in about 6 inches of snow. And any of you who knew who Pepper Lysaker was, the head coach who just passed away back in February, rest in peace, Herschel. And I've never seen a man celebrate a win. I mean, the kids were happy, the players were happy, but the head coach absolutely hooting and hollering, pumping his fists on the sideline. I had never seen anything like it, and it sits into my brain until this day to watch a head coach celebrate like that on the field, because they had beaten Normandale, and at that time Normandale was the king of community college football. Wow. They had won, I think, like 6 out of the last 7 titles. And for us to beat him, it was great.
Pepper was one of those characters that I'm really glad that you got to know as well as you did, because he's one of the characters that made you who you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have just one other little item here, because this regarding the NHL color man, my friend Donnie Cherry.
Oh boy.
So the longtime host of Coach's Corner in the fancy suits, he was saying bad things about immigrants and the sports network he was working for canned him on Monday.
There's been a lot of stuff
come out.
Yeah. And of course, he's always been controversial.
Yeah.
But something I saw, they taped that show. That is not done live. And they got to play it for 3 different games all at the same time, basically. So they got 3 feeds going out. They taped that show beforehand, and nobody said a word. None of the executives. They let it play out. And of course, Ron McLean, who sits next to, sat there and nodded his head and actually gave a thumbs up. And he came out and apologized the next day, because he knew. And I think as a co-host, sometimes somebody says something and you're kind of like, did I hear that right or did I not hear that right? And you kind of shake your head like, okay, we got to go to the commercial and we got to get done with it. Don Cherry got thrown under the bus. He said something totally wrong, don't get me wrong. But when the executives and everybody else taped it and said, nope, let it go, let it happen, it's almost like they were looking for a reason to fire him. And if that's the case, Sportsnet, shame on them. If you thought it was going to get a reaction and then you were going to have to fire him, and you thought about that beforehand, that's not the right way to do it.
Well, and the other thing they better keep in mind is Don Cherry is a very popular commentator.
Yeah.
And I think everybody generally kind of takes him with a grain of salt, with the exception of he liked fights.
Yeah.
And head hits against the board that didn't bother him a bit, and people are really taking that serious.
Yeah, and again, I'm not defending what he said, but what I'm saying is, they should have, if they thought it was going to be this, they should have never let it air. If they had a chance to do that,
I had no idea.
They should have said, look, you can't say that, and that's the great thing about taping something. If you're doing it something live, that's a different animal. So I'm not sure Don Cherry is to blame, but I'm not sure other people aren't to blame as well. And I didn't realize he's 85 years old.
85 years old.
I got his autograph at the 1992 Stanley Cup when they were playing the North Stars. Pittsburgh was playing the North Stars, and he was coming out from doing an intermission show, and he was signing autographs, and I got Don Cherry's autograph. And some people might think that that's not such a good thing anymore, but Don Cherry still knows the game of hockey. He likes to be controversial, and unfortunately, he went over the line.
That's his gig, and he knows that. He's been around for a long time, and he won a Stanley Cup, and he put that into the media and made a fine living on it.
Made a very fine living out of it. Rocco Baldelli, Manager of the Year, AL Manager of the Year, very well deserved. I would have been unbelievably disappointed if he hadn't been.
I have to say one thing. I stole something from Brian Gumbel the other day on his sports show off of HBO, and he was talking about the Toronto Raptors general manager, Masai, and he has basketball camps all over Africa. There's going to be an NBA Africa League starting, I think, in 2022. And so he's setting this up, but he has 14 or 15 camps all over, and he says, you don't know what it's like to go into a village where the average height is 6'8". So he picks this up. But I watch this guy, and here is a guy, literally, this is an immigrant that came from nothing, and he made her big. He made her big. Also, one more baseball note, and I chastised the Houston Astros a couple of weeks ago for their whatever, and then they got caught, or their players pinked on them, ratted them out that they were stealing signs electronically in 2017, and you just start going, and of course everybody's defending, well, they're not the only team doing it. Well, when you have the kind of success that you have, and then you do that, you're now the New England Patriots of the MLB, and you kind of get frowned upon when you do things like that. They were channeling this into a back room where they had a group of people doing the analysis. That's cheating. But I'm disappointed in it too. A team of that caliber shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah, and it's I understand you're always trying to get an edge and whatever else, but there's stealing signs is one thing. You get beamed in the brain for doing those kinds of things, for stealing signs at second base. What is Major League Baseball going to do to the Astros for doing this? This is, in my mind, loss of draft picks, fines, other things, and of course, if there are other teams doing it, there should be same penalties to those other teams. But it really looks bad when you've got a team that's played in the World Series the last few years, all of a sudden coming through and found out that they're cheating along the way. So it does not look very good.
It does not.
Anything else?
I think
you told me you were beboping in the solarium Saturday morning while I was getting ready for the Ghosts.
Tom Petty. I got a brand new Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers album, and before college game day was over, and they were showing the roasted pig down at
in Alabama.
I put on Tom Petty, and we just cranked. The windows were rattling, and then after that, to top it off with a little ZZ Top. It didn't get any better.
Can't get much better than that. Hey, bought Journey tickets this week.
Did you?
I did.
Hey, we're on the hunt for some Elton Johns.
Ooh.
They're going to be in the Fargo Dome.
Ooh, you're going to have to pay a pretty penny for those.
What's money?
What's money? You can't take it with you, so you might as well spend it, right?
That's right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
This program brought to you by Brewski's Bar and Grill, located in Utica, Minnesota. Your one-stop shop for delicious burgers, fries, pizzas, and more.